have a family, to raise children, to try to develop their values and enjoy watching them grow. There's nothing better except having grandchildren.
I think that's a good starting point to say, hey, I think we have a problem here. Let's talk about what that problem would be, and let's look at, two sides of a question. How can we approach this?
Enjoy every day. Just take what you're given and make the most of it, and life is good.
Hey, hi, and welcome to This Day and Age. And this is your host, Phil Tower. So we are back with part 2 of a very special This Day and Age episode. This was from our live recording at the Fulton Street Farmers Market, where I was joined by Renard, Marilyn, and Jareen from Holland Home. We spent a beautiful, sunny afternoon at the farmers market giving out free advice. And boy, did we have some great wisdom and some even better questions. We had so many great questions, in fact, that we realized we needed to do 2 episodes to capture all the wonderful questions and advice and wisdom that our guests had to share. So I think you're in for a real treat. Part 2, stand by. It's coming up now. Still have time for more great questions here under our This Day and Age podcast advice tent with Renard and Marilyn, also Jareen, all Holland Home residents. And I think that the one thing that we always love sharing with people is there's so much wisdom from older adults. If you take one thing away from these conversations, make the point to jump in with an older adult. It might be harder if it's a relative, but start those conversations. Okay, Joy has a question here at our advice tent. Go ahead, Joy.
I am Joy. I am about to turn 21 years old, and I'm wondering what's something that you guys wish you did or experienced when you were in your 20s.
All right, you got to struggle to remember back to your 20s, everybody. Marilyn, do you want to take that one?
Oh, goodness. In our case, that was a long time ago.
Hey, that's all right.
Looking back, I'm very happy with the direction I took. There were some confusing times. There was no doubt it's like, what do I want to do or be when I grow up? And I still sometimes ask that, even at my age. And I've certainly had a lot of experiences. Embrace what you're interested in career-wise. Take advantage of opportunities that you have while you're in school and make the most of it. Yeah, just make the most of every opportunity that comes your way.
Renard, do you remember your 21st birthday?
My 21st birthday, I think I got sick at a party, probably.
Thank you for your candor.
In my honor. And actually, that was a very revealing time because my first semester away at college, I made a lot of bad mistakes, wasted a lot of money on partying and alcohol, and realized within just a couple of months that I would crash and burn and not be successful if I continued that. So that was a very valuable learning experience early on. First time away from home, I was in with a bunch of upperclassmen, and they were not a particularly good influence on me. Yeah. But once I buckled down and decided at that point that I needed to focus on studying and career path and building solid relationships, that really turned my life around. So one thing to really focus on, I think, as you're turning 21 is just enjoying that time. Everything is still fresh and new. You're learning. You have lots of opportunities to try different things, different potential career paths, different classes, different friends, different travel. Do a lot of reading so that you can get those vicarious experiences and see what really seems exciting to you. Is it going to be working with children? Is it going to be international law? Whatever, medicine, whatever it might be. And don't be afraid to try different things and be flexible. Just enjoy that time. The other side of being 20 is that we don't appreciate how quickly the time passes. So focus on spending a lot of energy, I think, talking with parents and grandparents and other senior people while there's still opportunity.
Jareen, what would you tell Joy about to turn 21? What wisdom do you have for her?
Take time to think, to feel what you feel. There's always the go along with the crowd, what everybody else is doing, but give yourself time for what matters to you. You're welcome.
What a wonderful time.
When's your,
Yes.
I'm going to hand you the microphone again. When's your birthday, Joy?
My birthday's July 18th. So
Oh, very.
sweet.
It's just coming up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would also add, don't overplan your 21st birthday, because by the time you're 40, it won't matter. But actually, by the time you're 30, it won't matter.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. That's a good question. Here at the Advice Tent at Fulton Street Market, another one of our wisdom takers, and we are here really just open to just about anything. What's your name?
My name is Anna, and my question has to do with aging and staying positive as you age. I would say in this day and age, it's difficult, I think, sometimes, especially as a middle-aged woman. And I'm just curious what your thoughts are on staying positive as you age, and what advice you might have about staying positive in the aging process.
Great question.
Right off the top of my head, don't pay too much attention to the media.
Yeah.
Don't pay too much attention to everything else that's going on out there that is in the bigger, wider world. I mean, not to ignore it, but to focus on the relationships of people that really matter to you. To me, the most important thing as I get older is the relationships, whether they're with the young people in my life or the older people, but relationships.
I like staying in touch with a wide variety of ages of people. I think that really helps. And the other thing, too, again, as was just mentioned, we don't get caught up with TV or news other than occasional radio.
Great advice. Don't be over-influenced by the media. You're really not middle-aged till you're 60 or 70, so you're just a young woman. You've got a lot of living in front of you.
That's the best advice of the day.
The alternative is not particularly good, so aging's a wonderful thing. And just enjoy it. Embrace every new opportunity. Marilyn's mother, widowed, had advice for my mother, the widow, and said, whenever anybody offers you an opportunity to do something, say yes, do it, embrace that new opportunity, and you'll age gracefully.
We also had a friend who used to say, learn something new every day. And obviously there's a lot of inspirational reading. I like a variety of devotionals that I keep handy.
We're getting some great questions,
These are
and
fun.
and I really like that argument about middle age. All right, we have someone who didn't have a question before, who's now back to the advice tent. They've formulated the question. What's your first name?
My name is Kathleen.
Hi, Kathleen.
So, advice on dealing with my mother, who is 89 years old. She still drives. She's very able-bodied, super active. But one of her hobbies is shopping. She likes to buy things that are on sale. She has a whole lot of stuff in her house. Borderline, maybe OCD, a little bit of hoarding. How do we deal with that? She's not very receptive to what we're going to have to deal with in 10 years.
That's a great question, and we went through that exactly with my mom. She had lots of magazine subscriptions, and things that she liked weren't even necessarily on sale. But I used to go occasionally, I'd look at her checkbook, and just did things just in a relaxed, casual way. She got to be really good friends. We both did a couple of times when, unfortunately she overdrew her bank account, but she was great friends with the people at the bank. They corrected that. At some point, we did the credit card route where there was just a certain amount on her monthly card that my sister took over her banking. And that was okay with my mom. When we noticed that she was starting to have some difficulties in keeping that. And again, she was in her later 80s also when she did that. And quite frankly, we waited till she moved to Holland Home in her mid-80s. Moving to senior housing, she didn't have the space, but she had everything that was important to her. And we kids then just had to deal with it. And we all had our favorite charities that we like to donate things to. We waited until she had moved out of her home. And she had been saying for years she wasn't going to make any lifestyle changes. And then we were able to present this whole move in a real positive way. We were all really excited for her, and that's what helped us.
Jareen, you have any wisdom?
First of all, is your mother receptive to any kind of change? She's not.
And that's helpful, important information.
Right. So if she's not receptive to making changes, maybe you could institute something that's like, Mom, I know you love to shop, so just do that. But how about, can we decide to take out a few things for every new thing that comes in, some kind of a bargain? I don't know. I've not had that experience myself.
My advice on that, based on my experience with my mother-in-law and my mother as well, first a question, and that is, are all the siblings kind of on the same page? And if not, you're going to have to first sort out in the family between the siblings who's going to kind of run with the ball on that. And if you can get 2 or 3 of you that are on the same page, moving in the same direction, that's helpful. Over time, and it will take time, and it will take a lot of loving communication, you're going to have to begin to take more and more control. You're going to need patience. This could be a long-term process. It could take the rest of her life. But be graceful, be patient. I mean, it is her money if she wants to spend it, but you're going to have to slowly over time, as we did with my mother-in-law, be more and more involved and take over more and more control. That is not to minimize the difficulty of that. That could be very, very difficult. And that's where some good communication between the siblings that are perhaps local, that are most interested, most involved, most committed to loving and helping Mom in that way, that support group is going to be critical. Otherwise, if you try to do it on your own and everybody else in the family is against you, the whole thing will explode, unfortunately.
The other thing that was helpful as we would do some of the sorting when it came time, again, it's not easy, but just recalling all of the good memories that go along with some of those things, that are special.
It's a tough area.
It can be difficult. I mean, there was one circumstance that we were involved in where I actually had to petition the probate court of the state for authority over an individual and their finances so that we could assist her. She was a friend in our church that really had no family, and she was a disaster, both financially, emotionally, and we finally got that control. And so that's the ultimate. And she's still 102, still alive. So.
Well, the one thing about my mom, they had 5 inches of rain this week.
Can you say it again, Kathleen?
Sure. To make it a little more difficult, she had 5 inches of rain on, this week. So her basement is now wet. So right now we're in a quick response. I mean, there's still 2 more floors for us to deal with, but.
Yeah, it might be, and I'd love everyone's reaction on this, it might be the Band-Aid effect. You just take it out and you begin the process and then try to heal from there. We have so much great respect for the pain and the love in the midst of all of that, because in the end, you just want to let your mom know we care and we're trying to help. Every person I've known who's had a challenge with that, whether it was papers or things on sale or anything else, it was a real struggle. Certainly appreciate it. Renard, I think you wanted to add something.
Just when my mother-in-law moved from Dearborn to Holland Home here in Grand Rapids, her car was in the shop, which is similar to some of your wet papers in the basement. It never made a recovery and made it to Grand Rapids. So some of those papers in the basement are irretrievable, perhaps.
Well, thank you guys. Good luck with that.
And I actually have a question.
Oh, okay, great. What's your first name?
My first name is Rob.
Hi, Rob.
And again, I want to highlight my wife and I are blessed with 3 of our parents still alive. I have a father and a mother who are alive, and then her 89-year-old mother. But I have my father who's 87 and was a very high-profile surgeon, mucky muck, if you will, in the medical society, has now had to go into assisted living. His wife still lives in their old house, and he could not be more miserable. That there's no respect. He doesn't like the home. He doesn't like how he's just like living out his last days as an inmate, as he calls it. Do you have any advice on how to, brace his spirits or try to convince him this is the right thing to do? I mean, I feel like I fail at every step, saying, hey, your 81-year-old wife cannot handle your medical needs, you know. So anyway, any advice you could give, that'd be great.
A careful pause. We're getting the backstory here from Rob about his father, who's 87 and in a care facility, but he doesn't want to be there. Marilyn, you wanted to add something.
If there's a social worker or a staff person at the facility where he is, or an activities coordinator, maybe set up, you know, for you to set up a meeting to see what kinds of opportunities they may have, because that's one of the things that was important when we moved with Mom, both when she was in independent living and assisted living, was to find out what opportunities there are that he might be able to relate to.
He had a big complaint that all the activities in his home are relating towards women. I mean, it's probably 70-30 women to men in the facility. That's not an uncommon metric, but he's like, man, everything's for women. And I'm like, Dad, they can still be fun, but I just don't know how to approach it.
Yeah, I think Marilyn's advice is very sound. For you to work with the professionals that are there to learn what activities there are, then either on your own or in communication with your dad, figuring out what things might enrich his life that he might find satisfying. He's always been, as you said, at a high level, so it's going to be difficult to find things, but you're going to have to look for something he can do that will bring satisfaction to him. In other words, he may be able to give something still to the community. He may be able to be a reader there. He might read to some of the blind residents. He might be able to become a leader in that facility and develop things. The other thing for you to do is look for any activities that he can do, that you can do with him to get him involved. In other words, can you go to the gym and pump iron together? Or can he still at 87 learn to play pickleball or chess or whatever? Can he share his childhood stories with you or someone else? Maybe he has the resources to hire someone to help him write a book. I will talk to him. He tells me his story. I'll do all the writing, but it's his biography. Are there things he can still do to be vibrant? And you need to look for those.
Yeah. No, wow, that's great.
Remember, back to that wisdom of leaning on the people in the care facility where he's living. For your dad, they've seen 50 other people just like him. Exactly. So they do have that wisdom, and lean on that and do whatever you could to help your father focus forward. Understanding that, 6 months from now, a year from now, it's going to get better. Just as tough things in life always do, it will get better, and try to focus him on that.
That's one of the reasons that Marilyn and I, in our early 70s, moved into the Holland Home continuing care community so that we could be leaders and give to others that are there and help them still lead a vibrant life, early on, and to lean on their 1,200 employees who are experts, who are trained to handle the situation that your dad's in. Sure. So that's our guidance there.
Dreen, you've been listening carefully down there. What are your thoughts for Rob?
Bernard said about leaning on the staff. I agree with that, the people that are experts, but thinking about what your father might be able to contribute to still give, I think that would be very fulfilling. No matter how old we are, we still have things to give, and that makes us feel valued.
One of our friends was in a situation similar to that, a college professor, and when he reached that point, it was like, what could I do? Well, we suggested he invite young college kids to come into his room and just talk to him about his experiences. And that was so rich for those young people. He could talk to residents.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
This has been good. Now we have a line, and we have more advice seekers. Rob and
Thank you.
Kathleen,
Good
some
luck.
great
Have a great
questions.
day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Grab that microphone, and what's your first name? And
Marlena.
Hi, Marlena. What's your question for these three wise people?
I have two questions, actually. My first one's more of requesting suggestions. I'm trying to save up for a house and was wondering kind of what the best way to get that money to the point where you can put a down payment on would be, if you have any suggestions on that.
I love financial questions. I'm a numbers kind of a guy. Save whatever you can, obviously. Save it in a very conservative place, just a good mutual fund, for example, that's a money market fund, because it's not going to go down in value at all, rather than saving it in your checking account where you're not gaining any interest at all. But more important, if you're going to be a first-time homeowner, talk early on with your favorite banker and your favorite realtor, because there are some home ownership or purchase opportunities where you need almost no down payment, if depending on the program, and you may be able to get into the housing market earlier rather than later, rather than saving a big bundle.
And then my second question is not necessarily relationship, but family relationship. My dad's had a couple strokes and seizures following that, and we kind of have the same personality, and we kind of butt heads at time because we kind of have the same personality. Just anyway, to when he gets frustrated or I get frustrated anyway, to kind of work around that and calm things down, cool the situation.
Marilyn?
Probably acknowledging that, just acknowledging his frustration and your frustration, and now what can we do with it, would be probably the thing that I can think about the most, but yes.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good starting point to say, hey, I think we have a problem here. Let's talk about what that problem would be, and let's look at two sides of a question. How can we approach this?
I would start off by saying, Dad, I love you, and I want to do only what's best for you. Right now, on this particular issue, we're having trouble communicating. Whatever I do, if I say something wrong, please forgive me. I just want to be helpful, and then go on with the conversation from there. But just embrace him. Just embrace him and love him and be patient.
The other thing, too, it's always hard for men in particular to be less than 100% physically.
I don't know if you've done this yet, but just lay it out there and say, Dad, watching you this way it's hard for me too. And I'm struggling, it's frustrating, so I just want you to know. I think that would really connect with him.
We've done it many times, and with the stroke and the seizures, the cognitive aspect isn't exactly how it used to be.
Sure.
And so it makes it more difficult. But we will fight, and then we'll both calm down, and then we come back to each other and say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. And we kind of get around to it. But it's just in the moment, it's hard.
Yeah. And I think you just remind him, no matter how it goes, I'm going to be here.
Yeah.
That will really, whether he says it to you or not, that will really land with him.
Whether he swears at me, he screams at me, he slams doors, I still love my dad, and we always kind of come back around. And just the bad thing is we kind of have the same personalities, so when one of us gets mad, the other one's going to get mad. So it doesn't really work out very well.
I'll put it on YouTube and sell admission.
Yeah.
I think you're on the right path, Marlena. Thank you so much. That's a great question.
Thank you. Thank you.
Look on the house. That's exciting.
Real life advice from three wonderful experts, three Holland Home residents. We have a young man here. Speak right into that microphone. What's your name?
Andy.
All right. What's your question?
When there's a lot of decisions, how do I worry about it sometimes, and what to write the decision, and how do I make the right decision and stop worrying about it?
Wow. How old are you, Andy?
8.
8. Decisions at 8 years old, my goodness. You've left a panel speechless here.
Good for you for thinking about that, and I understand the worry that you have, because sometimes you're wondering, is this going to be the right thing, or what if something goes wrong, or what if it's the poor decision? But do you know what? You just go for it anyway, and check with your mom and dad, because they would be really wise, because obviously you've gotten to the point where you're 8 years old and you are brave enough to ask a question into a microphone. That is very impressive and wonderful, so you know that you can always talk to your mom and dad about that. The other thing that you could do too is to write it down, what you are worried about, and what if that does happen. can you make a different decision then afterwards? But your mom and dad are obviously very wise people too.
Yeah. Jareen?
No, I think that's very good advice to write it down and think about it, but not to think about it too hard, and then just ask mom or dad what they think, and then just go with it.
That's good advice. Marilyn taught nursery school for many years, so she's kind of an expert on guiding young people, and her advice is wise for you. But I encourage you to just think through your questions, ask your mom and dad. If it's something you're really worried about, write down the question and the possibilities. If you do make a mistake, forgive yourself, and then just do it a little bit differently, and then move forward.
All right, Marilyn wants to add something.
One other quick idea, too. Do you like to run or bounce a basketball or throw a ball or something like that, something physical outside, or ride a bike or swim? Because sometimes I can remember years ago I liked to swim, and I can remember sometimes just swimming, doing laps in a pool at our high school, and that's when I would think things through, too, when I was doing something, like you like to run around the yard. And then that sometimes helps to think through things if you're doing something physically active.
Well, good luck with your decisions. And that's very brave of you to ask those questions. That's really, really good. Yeah. Thank you, Andy. Here at the Fulton Street Farmers Market in Grand Rapids, Michigan, with Renard and Marilyn and Jareen, and we have another advice seeker in this busy farmers market. What's your first name?
Michaela.
Hi, Michaela. What's your question?
Hi. Yeah. So I think just being in my 20s and being single and having a tentative plan for life, not really knowing if I'm doing the right thing right now, and I think just navigating, being content with where I'm at, but still having like a future in mind and like a plan in life. So I think just enjoying the journey and like how that can look like realistically. So
I'm not exactly sure what the question is, other than is that okay to just to relax into your journey? Yeah, and you don't have to have all those answers right now. Just be open to whatever experiences come your way. Embrace anything that looks interesting and challenging.
I'm a goal setter. I like to set goals and kind of write them down, and you could do that for yourself now. You could write down what I'd like to accomplish in the next year, but in the next 10 years also, or maybe in my lifetime. And obviously those are going to look different. And then as you go along, don't hesitate to change those if your interests change. But then you'll have a way to check to see, how am I doing? How am I doing? How's am I staying in good shape? Am I continuing to grow mentally? How's my faith developing? How are my friendships and relationships? Am I building a family if I'm interested in that? How's all that going? And you'll be able to check as you go along.
Yeah, I think you're already showing a lot of wisdom with just learning to be content where you are, too.
And all of these guys have said some great wisdom. Don't get too caught up in media and your social media feed and letting that define your reality. Don't do that at all. Too many people do that, whether they're 25 or 45, and that's not a real healthy thing.
I agree. The social media feed, the going along with the crowd thing whatever that crowd is, can be very distracting and disorienting. But to try to remind yourself and give yourself time to think about where do I want to be, as Renard said, some goals, whether they're written or whatever, but to have some identifiable things that you want to do that matter to you. And it sounds like you're already thinking about them, that this is your journey. Is this my path? Is this where I want to? And knowing, you have goals, but they change, and there's flexibility.
Thank you for your question.
Exciting time for you. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another advice seeker. We've hit a busy moment here under the advice tent, which is great. Good morning. What's your first name?
My name is Lindsay.
Hi, Lindsay. What's your question for our three panelists
Yeah.
here.
So I just started my first job out of grad school this week. So I just finished my first week, which is exciting.
Yay.
Thank you. And I'm kind of just looking ahead. You know, I got 30 years to go before I retire, hopefully. And I hope I enjoy this job and it's going to be the right job for me. But how do I know, you know, a couple years down the road if I'm like, I'm not loving life, this is like stressful, I'm not loving this occupation anymore? How do I know if I should stick it out, if I should change, you know? Any advice on that?
Yeah. What do you do?
I'm a speech pathologist.
Okay, great. Good for you.
Yeah.
Who wants to tackle that? How do you know when it's time to maybe change careers versus, you know, you're just in a rough path in that career?
When it starts to nag at you, or if it starts to nag at you, like, you know, this just doesn't feel as good as it did, or I'm not as excited about it, or something here isn't, question that and then look into that a little further. Is it the situation? Is it someone you're working with? Is it something you've changed that you want differently? And then you just resolve for yourself, how do you feel about where you are? I think it's extremely important to be happy in what you're doing, to be in a job that you just don't feel good about. That is not good for your psyche in any way. Be open to what's you're hearing from inside your gut.
Mm-hmm.
Doreen, I think that's excellent advice. And if you're not excited in the morning to get up and go to work, then it's time to look for different opportunities in that same work setting, or something different completely, or changing something in the setting. Perhaps it's a personality issue or whatever that you can deal with, or a scheduling matter. But you will know when you're no longer enjoying it, but hopefully that time will never come. I also suggest that you continue to study and learn and stretch. Make yourself indispensable. Look for other things that are going on in your work environment that you'd like to try beyond what you're already doing. Even if it's just something in the speech pathology area, a technique that you've never learned or never had an opportunity to use, or a population that you haven't worked with yet, little children versus old people, or whatever it might be. And always continue to grow, and that will give you new opportunities to find new areas that you're even more excited about and that you can continue to grow into.
Yeah. Marilyn, what would you add to that?
The other thing, too, is realizing that once in a while, hopefully it won't be too often, but sometimes you will face challenges and things will be unhappy, but look at the overall picture of what's being accomplished and done and supported, and you'll be able to handle those moments. And yeah, I went through one little phase when I was just feeling restless with what I was doing, and I did look at a couple of other options and very quickly realized that I was doing what I was meant to be doing. And did it for 25 years.
That's really good wisdom. Well, good luck with that, Lindsay.
Yes.
Congratulations. New speech pathologist. Thank you so much. We have another advice seeker here at the Fulton Street Farmers Market under the advice tents. Good morning. What's your first name?
Selena.
Hello, Selena. I can tell you've been waiting a while.
Yes.
You got this question down?
I do. I've got it
Okay.
down. Okay, so my question would be, what advice do you have for a married couple who's in their late 20s, who is contemplating starting a family and having children? So thinking about what life would look like with a family, and then what it would look like just us two enjoying life.
Even though it was a long time ago for us, I remember being at that point, and obviously starting a family is a tremendous responsibility, but it's just a tremendous opportunity for joy and for growth for you both personally and in your relationship. There'll be times of stress and times of being sleep deprived, but the greater picture is part of the miracle of creating life and nurturing life. And that's tremendous. We've also known of couples who have chosen not to, and that's fine also. But obviously we made the choice and we're able to have children, and there's nothing like it. And part of that is understanding what can your schedule be so that you can both be available to pour into your children as you're raising them.
That's really just a wonderful question, and it tells me that you and your husband already have a deep relationship and a lot of wisdom between the two of you because you're thinking about that in advance rather than just bumbling into it as many young couples do. If you decide to have children, then before you do that, if there's anything that you wanted to do almost in a selfish way as a couple, do it. You know, if you want to go to Aruba or spend a month in Europe backpacking or whatever, do that now, because when you have a child, it is and it should be a complete game changer. Now your entire focus is no longer the two of you having fun. It's you as a family unit and your responsibility and the joy of pouring into that young life and developing their values so that they can become responsible adults someday. So it's a complete change. To have a family, to raise children, to try to develop their values and enjoy watching them grow. You know, there's nothing better except having grandchildren.
I knew that was coming. Shireen?
I wouldn't add much more to it other than I think it is wonderful. It's so great that you are thinking about what choice you want to make, that it's a very thoughtful thing, as Renard said, you're not just bumbling into the future, because it is a game changer no matter what it is.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to remember, too, is after your child is born, and there could be two more after that, remember not to forget about your husband and your marriage and focus on the marriage.
Good advice. Yeah.
Those personal date nights are still important, even when you have children.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And make sure your husband listens back to this podcast for all the advice this day and age. All you have to do is on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, if you like podcasts. It's good to learn about navigating life 40 years from now, maybe 45 years from now. Because what's old then will be way older than it is now, right? Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Great question. Thanks, Selena. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Do you guys have a question for us in the advice tent? It's free, it's wonderful, and it doesn't hurt. What's your first name?
My name's Maddie.
Hi, Maddie.
This is awesome. Thank
This
you guys
is
for doing this.
Marilyn and Renard and Jeraine. What question do you have for them?
So we are both in medical school right now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I was going to say my condolences.
Well, that's probably more on the line of this question.
Okay, you
but-
said we. Real quickly, put the microphone in his face. What's your name?
Hi, my name is Saad.
And you're both, what year in medical school?
Third year.
Third year, both third year.
Yep.
Okay, I'm not trying to hijack your question. What's your question, Maddie?
No, you're okay. So my question is, especially third year, we have a lot of long days in the hospital and a lot of time outside when we're home that's focused on studying. So I was wondering if you guys had any advice on how a lot of us have we feel as though we've put our personal lives to the side and don't really have time for hobbies and our passions outside of school. I was wondering if you guys have any advice on how to balance a chaotic career with the things you love to do outside of work.
Yeah, it's all about that work-life balance.
We've gone through that in part because I was a tax attorney for my entire career. And the first law firm that I joined, a big high-powered firm on the East Coast, hundreds of lawyers, and everyone there was working 70 hours plus a week. So, I've been where you've been, putting that time in. I left that firm after 4 years intentionally to find a position where I could have a reasonable balance between family, personal needs, faith needs, exercise needs, and still make a professional contribution. So you will just have to be alert to the question or the problem, which you already are because you're asking the question, so I acknowledge that. But once you're alert to it, then you can make conscious decisions to try to manage it. And every September, as we were raising our children, Marilyn and I would have a serious conversation about what do we eliminate, what do we do, what do we not do with the children in our personal schedules to keep this all in balance this next year, this next academic year, as we go forward. So you just continually look at it. I made a conscious decision early in my career to take more vacation each year than I took the prior year. If you do that for 40 years, you're taking a lot of vacation by that last year.
Yes.
And I did that. But I also had partners in the law firm that never took a vacation. I was just as valuable to our clients and the firm and made just as much money as they did, but I did it differently.
Well, we've heard from a lot of, there's kind of this culture, I think, especially with the generation before us and before them of physicians, where it's a value statement to have never taken a personal day or dedicate yourself to the hospital, which is very honorable, you know, but we see a lot of burnout in those people, and that's, I think, part of the problem with the physicians that are younger now are realizing that.
Yeah, and thank you for being courageous and jumping into the field of medicine, because we will always need good doctors, good physicians, all kinds. I think that's so wise what Renard said. Schedule time for yourself, because you don't want to be one of those doctors burning out 15 years from now or even 10 years from now, because it does happen. And Marilyn, you were a part of that fast-paced life when you were married to Renard with a law firm. What's your wisdom on this?
Well, and even before that, when he was in school, and I think, and it was critically important, he obviously wanted to do well, and it was long, long hours of studying. And I remember friends asking, how can you do that? And part of it is just understanding each other. And right now, this is a temporary thing when you're in school. But one thing, and again, it was just very rare. We just didn't have the extra money to do date nights. But what we would do, there was a couple that we used to get together with occasionally. On a Sunday afternoon, let's make some soup together. And enjoy that, or let's go out for ice cream. Just those little snippets of time, because the time pressures when you are in school are huge. And my brother went through medical school too, and I remember his stories about the 36-hour shifts that you do, because you have to see the progress of a disease. And you realize, okay, I know that friends and family need to guard and protect that time so that you can focus and aren't making demands, on time. And again, in those early years when Renard was working such long hours at that particular firm, the first 4 years, we were in a position that I was running things at home. I was working a full-time job, but when I wasn't working, I could take care of everything. It's just a matter of planning, and knowing that part of life, you'll see an end to it. And just even if you have 5 minutes to go outside and take a breath of fresh air and run around the block, as you're studying, because it is intense. But we need good professionals.
Yeah, we sure do.
So congratulations on your decision of being where you are.
Congratulations and thank you.
Yeah, I would agree that to think that this is temporary, as you already know, this isn't forever, and to know that you have some plans, some goals, and keep those in mind, and just give yourself a break, a few minutes here or there whenever you can.
Thank you, Maddie and Saad. Good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck on medical school. Yeah, you got this. You guys have been amazing. We're going to try to land this plane, because we've had just some amazing questions, advice seekers. Did this go as you thought? I mean, were you surprised by any of the questions? I'm going to start with you, Jarena. We'll go down the line.
I guess I'm surprised about the number of questions, the thoughtful questions from young people. I really appreciate that. It was a much more fun experience than I anticipated it might be.
Well, you were terrific. I mean, you were all terrific. We have just 3 different human beings. Renard, I want your thoughts and impressions about this wild and crazy advice tent this morning.
I really enjoyed myself. I enjoyed getting to know you and Jareen a little bit better. I was excited and pleased at the seriousness and depth of the questions that people asked. And it just confirms for me how people are trying hard to do well with their lives.
Yeah.
And that's important, because so often as we view our culture, it's easy to become discouraged that people maybe are not trying to take control and live good, solid lives, pouring into their community and their family. So I'm encouraged to see that.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time, by the way. We sure appreciate that.
I agree as well. Marilyn, what about you? What did you take away from this morning?
I obviously was a little nervous or apprehensive about this, but it's been a lot of fun. And again, same thing. I've been impressed with the questions that people have had, and and just the friendliness. And I don't think I went down too many or made too many rabbit tracks because I get accused of doing that in conversations.
Did Renard say anything you hadn't heard in 52 years of marriage?
No, nothing new. We know each other pretty well after all this time.
I had to ask. I just had to ask. Any final words of advice or wisdom we did not impart on anybody this morning? Anything that's at the tip of your tongue?
You know, I do encourage people to take their faith walk seriously because, frankly, there's nothing more important. We're all going to age. We're all going to pass into eternity at some point, and people need to investigate that, discuss it with people that they respect and that they know love them, and will try to give them wise direction and advice that's in their best interest.
Marilyn?
Enjoy every day. I mean,
Yeah.
just take what you're given and make the most of it, and life is good.
The one thing I take away, and is it safe to say everybody's older than 70 here?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Do you remember when you were 30 looking at 70-year-olds going, I don't
my-
ever want to be that old? And isn't it different how 70 today is radically different than 70 looked then? Would you not agree?
Looking forward to reaching 100.
I have no doubt you're going to make it.
I know that the
radically
number
different.
that I have now on my age is large, but yet I don't feel that inside.
Right.
Yeah, when my brother advised me, as far as a geriatric physician, it's like, but a geriatric. He said, they have a lot to offer. It's like, am I there? He said, Marilyn, just look at your age.
You guys have been terrific. You've been dynamic. You've been thoughtful. You've been introspective, and you've been incredibly valuable. So you can all take a bow. This is audio, so we can't see that. But really, I have truly enjoyed this. I hope our listeners have enjoyed it as much as I have, and thank you so much. Another episode, and I think this may have been our best one yet of the advice tent. Now we've got to top this a third time. For this day and age. I want to thank you for listening. I want to remind you, you can check out all of our episodes at thisdayandage.org. We have a website, and we have a lot of episodes. In fact, we have thousands of you that have downloaded this podcast. We just hit a big milestone, so thank you for making it a success. And if you haven't checked out our past episodes, you want to talk about great advice. It might not come as close to this episode, but it's pretty darn good. All at thisdayandage.org, thisdayandage.org. You can also email us if you have a question or an idea for a future episode, or maybe you just want to say to Renard, how can I learn to be as wise as you are? You can email us at hello@thisdayandage.org, hello@thisdayandage.org. I want to thank Jareen Hoffman-Bodkins, also Renard and Marilyn Kalasa, all Holland Home residents, all very wise, very fun people. That will do it for this episode of This Day and Age, on location at the Fulton Street Farmers Market. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for listening. For Holland Home and This Day and Age, I'm Phil Tower. We'll see you again soon.